Wife picked our son's name, but now my family insists on using a Westernist nickname I don't agree with. I told them to respect the name we chose, and it's caused some tension. We live in England, wife is South Asian and I am white British late 20s F&M. We have young boy twins, just under 2 years old. Names are important, and we don't mind who sees this, so we're using exact first names but not surname. I had no name preferences, am uninventive, and have a boring British name myself. Think John James Jacob Smith, not really, but basically. With our kids, they both have my surname, Smith, and from day one I said I wanted her pick on first names, and she chose lovely names from her culture that I fell in love with. So our boys are Raman Navraz Smith and Rustam Parvez Smith, which means joyous new year and victorious hero in its Parsi origins. We liked that they were similar-ish without being the same. The boys will live in the UK, so obviously we have no problem with either shortening their name or going by a nickname at school as long as it's their choice. Plus, it's not likely they'll do it for racialized reasons. We live in very diverse London. Problem: boys are not identical, and like many mixed-race siblings, they look a bit different. They have similar features, but Ramin has dark hair and eyes like his mum, and Rustam has light hair and eyes like me. They're both ethnically ambiguous and very young. If you're thinking in terms of white passing, you would say Rustam will find it easier to pass, while Ramin a bit harder. We don't micromanage our toddlers' racial traits, so haven't given much thought to it. Unfortunately, my family, except my parents, seem to have given this too much thought. Sil started it by repeatedly commenting that Ramin looked like a Raman but Rustam didn't look like a Rustam, and we were just, but let it go. Then she and my brother start calling him Russell as a nickname. Get extended fam to do it to the point he starts answering to it, and people use the nickname in captions or texts. We said no multiple times. We put our foot down and said only my parents could see either boy till they knock the Russell it off. Cue flood of tears from Sil and blame from others, telling us it was just well-meaning nicknaming, that her 3U daughter came up wubwit, and that we're oversensitive. I feel we're going insane, as other than my parents, everyone seems on their side and saying we're draconian. We don't care if the boys want a nickname at any point, but they're babies. And I just can't buy it has nothing to do with race when they're doing it to the blonde kid, and not the darker one. I also can't buy that their child gave the name because of the above what 3YO comes up with Russell. Our line: we do not want this weird difference to exist between the boys before they even comprehend race. We think it's damaging long-term to give one boy a white name just because he's blonde, especially as the two do actually look different. But maybe we are too close to it, and as so many people keep telling us it's harmless, we're overthinking. Help. Next story. Wife says her sister has more right to name our daughter than I do, so I asked when her sister will start paying child support. Now my wife is upset, and I'm wondering if I went too far. My wife and I, both early 30s, are expecting our first child together after 5 years of marriage. My wife was always close with her sister, but I never felt like her sister was put between us before, or where I felt like they ganged up on me. We had talked about baby names in the past. We had agreed we'd like 3 to 4 kids. Our communication was amazing for years, both before and after marriage, but now that she's pregnant, it's changed. She decided that she doesn't like any names we discussed before, and as the mom and the person carrying the baby, she gets a final say, and she's been discussing names with her sister and having her sister give suggestions, but she won't listen to a single name I suggest. I told her I understand if she wants to share her ideas or get some inspiration from her sister, but we should be talking, her and me. She brushed me off. I asked her to please listen and understand that she was hurting my feelings by doing this, and she was making me feel like I was less important in this process than her sister. I told her that our daughter is ours together and we should be working together. Afterward, her sister told me to know my place and stay in my lane. I asked my wife to attend couples counseling with me. She asked me what I was being so dramatic for. I told her I want to be a part of naming our daughter. I want to have some say, to work with her, not to have her and her sister name our baby. About a month ago, my wife finally said that she feels like her sister, being a woman and her closest friend, has every right to have a say in what her first niece will be named. She told me it's important that she includes her in this, that I don't have a right to insist on being a part of this. I was so mad at that point that I didn't argue further or say more. I settled down, talked to a therapist to get some ideas on how to communicate better. I had gently brought up including me in between, and then a few days ago I told her how hurtful that was to me, and I asked her why she didn't want me to be a part of it. What was she afraid of, or was she feeling pressured to include her sister out of guilt or something else? She told me she felt like she could say who could name our baby and who can't, and she wanted her sister, not me. She told me I should try to be understanding of this and it's not such a big deal. I asked her when her sister will pay child support, since she has the right to name our child when I don't. At that point, I had grown so frustrated and was angry. My wife called me ridiculous and said I was being petty and how it seemed like I didn't respect her decisions or her sister being involved, which she thought was ugly of me. She also said it's crazy to even think her sister should pay child support when she's our daughter, not her sister's. Then she told me I shouldn't be such an ass about this by asking weird questions like that. Next story. Sided with my mom after she told my wife she isn't family. And now my wife is hurt, wondering if I made a mistake or if my mom was in the right. My beautiful wife Zoe and I have been married for a year. I have a 10-year-old sister, Liv, who is a very shy, quiet, well-behaved kid. With her parents or super close family friends, she is sassy, funny, outgoing, but around most adults she is super reserved. Zoe and Liv have an okay relationship, but I certainly wouldn't say they are close. Liv hates the movie character Krampus. When she was 4, she went downstairs on Christmas Eve and my mom and her friend were watching the movie in the dark living room, and it scared the sh*t out of her. It's not like she is still super scared of it, but she definitely still hates it. We were recently staying with my family while in between places just for a month, and Zoe found a Halloween mask that looked similar to Krampus at her friend's house and thought it would be hilarious to prank Liv. I really don't think she had bad intentions. She has a mischievous streak, and it was totally something Liv's dad would do. So Zoe woke her up with the mask, and Liv didn't think it was funny and basically just wouldn't talk to her. My mom came into our room and very aggressively told Zoe, if you ever go into my sleeping child's room again, we are going to have a huge problem. Zoe tried to say she was just playing around, and she didn't think they would get mad as Liv's dad does stuff like that. My mom said he is her F-king dad. You aren't family. Zoe was furious and asked if I was really not going to defend her. I said you are 100% my family. But Liv probably doesn't think of you as family, and that is understandable. My mom even clarified that is what she meant. She said she considers her husband family, but would never ask us to. And she told Zoe to accept that she isn't Liv's family. Zoe is furious with me for not standing up for her. I feel my mom was mostly right. Liv doesn't view Zoe as family and is more closed off and reserved with her V's her dad, who she is 100% comfortable with and would feel she could get back at. Zoe is my family, but it seems weird to push her on my family. Next story. Refusing to pay for my son's wedding after finding out he's excluding his stepbrother from the guest list, and now the family is divided, wondering if I overreacted or if he crossed a line. I 52M have 2 sons, Alex 28M, my biological son from my first marriage, and Jake 26M, my stepson from my wife's previous relationship. I married my current wife 48F when the boys were teenagers. We blended our families the best we could, but Alex and Jake never really bonded. They were civil, but there was always tension, mostly from Alex, who felt like I was replacing him when I remarried. Over the years, I've tried to treat them equally. I paid for both of their college tuitions, helped them with their first cars, and supported them in their endeavors. I've always seen Jake as my own son, and my wife has done the same with Alex. We've done everything possible to blend our family, even though we knew the boys would never be best friends. Fast forward to now, Alex is engaged and planning a big wedding. He asked me months ago if I could contribute financially, and I happily agreed, setting aside a significant amount of money to cover most of the costs. We've been having regular planning meetings, and everything seemed to be going smoothly until last week, when I noticed Jake's name was missing from the guest list. When I asked Alex about it, he shrugged and said, "I just don't want him there." I was shocked and asked for an explanation, but Alex wouldn't give me one. He simply said it was his wedding, and he didn't feel obligated to invite anyone he didn't want there. I told Alex that Jake is part of the family, and that not inviting him would create unnecessary drama. Alex was adamant, saying they were never close, and he didn't want to fake it on his big day. He said he'd rather have a smaller, more intimate event without any awkwardness, and I could either accept it, or I told Alex that I wasn't comfortable funding a wedding where one of my sons was deliberately excluded without any clear reason. He got defensive and said it wasn't fair for me to hold the money over his head as a form of control. He accused me of never putting him first and always favoring Jake, which I found completely unfair considering everything I've done for him. My wife is devastated. She feels like this is Alex's way of punishing us for marrying and blending our families. Jake, on the other hand, is trying to stay out of it, but I can tell he's hurt. He's acting like it doesn't bother him, but I know it does. He's never caused any problems, and has always been respectful of Alex's space. Alex's fiancée called me and tried to mediate, saying that weddings are stressful, and that Alex is just feeling overwhelmed. She begged me not to pull the funding, as they've already booked venues and vendors with the expectation of my support. She said she understood how I felt, but also reminded me that this was Alex's day, not a family reunion. Now Alex is barely speaking to me, and my extended family is split. Some think I'm justified for standing up for Jake, while others think I'm overstepping and should just let Alex have his day the way he wants it. I'm torn. I don't want to damage my relationship with Alex, but I also feel like this is a slap in the face to Jake and our entire family.